You haven't been bored in years. Not really. Not the kind where your mind goes quiet and empty and a little uncomfortable. Every single one of those moments, waiting for a kettle, standing in a queue, lying awake for 4 minutes before sleep, got filled. Not by you, by something built to notice the second your attention goes idle and put a small, cheap dopamine hit in the gap before you even realized there was a gap. That thing you bought last week that you can't quite explain, you weren't shopping. You were bored, and something sold you the feeling of not being bored anymore. Here's the actual claim of this video, and it's a strange one. This is the silent killer of wealth. Not one big bad decision. Dozens of tiny ones you never noticed making, because they weren't decisions. They were reflexes, filling a gap you didn't choose to have filled. Boredom used to be productive. It's where ideas came from, where you worked out what you actually wanted, where your brain did quiet background processing nobody was interrupting. Somewhere in the last decade, boredom got identified as a gap in revenue and closed. Today we're covering how that happened, what real boredom was actually doing for you, why too busy to spend beats too disciplined to spend every time, and the real dividing line between spending that builds your life and spending that just fills a hole. Here's what's actually engineered into your phone. Autoplay. Endless scroll. Feeds specifically tuned on intermittent reinforcement. The same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive, because you never know which scroll gets you the good one. Researchers studying platform design found users are routinely pushed toward content they never consciously chose to seek out. The entire system is built around one job. Notice attention going idle and fill it before you notice it happened. And the feed isn't just entertainment. It's a storefront that never closes, sitting one thumb flick away from every single boring moment in your day. This isn't a willpower failure. It's a documented mechanism. Impulse spending rises sharply under negative emotional states. Stress, boredom, loneliness, sadness. Shopping triggers a real dopamine release, and it's strongest exactly when you're bored or stressed, because your brain is already searching for relief. Here's the trap inside the trap. Research on rapid short video switching found it doesn't relieve boredom, it increases it. So you scroll to escape boredom, the scrolling makes the boredom worse, and the purchase becomes the escape from that. The average Brit now makes 42 impulse purchases a year. 944 pounds total, nearly 79 pounds a month. And 28% of people are doing this at least once a week. That's not a spending problem. That's a boredom relief system with a card attached. And here's the part that should make you feel better, not worse. A trend called underconsumption core started on TikTok in the summer of 2024. People showing the same skincare bottle scraped to the bottom, the same coat worn for 6 winters, actively celebrating not buying. It hit 2 billion views by June 2025. 55 million videos in a single month at its peak. And the posts rewarding restraint get nearly 3 times the engagement of the old haul videos. Alongside it, loud budgeting. People openly telling friends what they can and can't afford instead of hiding it. In 2026, 42% of Gen Z now do this, up from 38% 2 years ago, and the ones doing it are saving over 500 pounds a month. This isn't a niche opinion. It's a live cultural correction, and it's happening because enough people worked out the same thing you're about to. So what did we actually lose when boredom got filled in? A study in the Creativity Research Journal found people who sat through 15 boring minutes before a creative task performed better than people who didn't. Separate research had participants copy entries out of a phone book, genuinely tedious. And afterward, they came up with more creative uses for a plastic cup than people who'd done nothing beforehand. When your mind wanders, it activates what neuroscientists call the default mode network, and that state correlates directly with more creative insight and better problem solving. Boredom wasn't a bug in your day. It was unstructured processing time. And it's the first thing that gets sacrificed when every idle second gets a notification. Here's the actual fix, and it's not have more willpower. Willpower is a battle you fight and eventually lose, over and over, every single idle moment of every single day. Being genuinely occupied isn't a battle. There's no gap left for the feed to fill. This is why people midway through an absorbing project deep in real work, building something that actually matters to them, report barely thinking about their phone at all. Not because they're stronger, because the boredom that spending relies on simply isn't available to be hijacked. You don't beat the attention economy by resisting it in the moment. You beat it by not handing it any idle moments to work with. But this isn't a video telling you to spend nothing. That's not the line. The line isn't cheap versus expensive. It's intentional versus reactive. A cheap top you forgot you owned within a month, bought at 11 p.m. out of boredom, versus one well-made coat you chose on purpose and wear for a decade. Over time, that can be the same total money, spent completely differently. One is filler. One is an input into your actual life. Fast fashion is built on cheap synthetic materials designed for cheapness, not longevity. And researchers describe a quiet unease that sits underneath the short-lived satisfaction of that kind of purchase. You already feel this. You just haven't had the language for it until now. And here's the part almost nobody explains properly. A UK study of over 500 adults found home clutter directly predicted worse psychological well-being. Separate research found clutter triggers a measurable stress response within 200 milliseconds of walking into a room, and homes described as more cluttered showed genuinely less healthy stress hormone patterns. Your environment isn't neutral. It's either quietly calming your nervous system or quietly working against it all day, whether you notice or not. That's the actual case for quality. Good food made from real ingredients, a coat that's built to last, a home with fewer things in it but better ones. Natural materials like wood, wool, and linen are linked to a stronger sense of calm than synthetic, disposable versions of the same object. This isn't luxury for its own sake. It's choosing inputs that support you instead of ones that just fill a gap and disappear. You are not weak for buying things you didn't need. You were bored on purpose, by design, and something was waiting exactly where the boredom was. The fix isn't more discipline. It's less idle attention lying around for the feed to take, and more intention about what actually earns a place in your life once it's there. Get occupied by something real. Buy less, but buy it on purpose. Let your environment work for you instead of quietly against you. If this changed how you see your last 10 purchases, share it with someone who's always just browsing. Subscribe for the next one.